At some point in life, we all become the caregiver. And what I'm sharing with you today is based on lived experience, hard work, and science, with only one goal: to inspire you and maybe help you look differently at something we think we all understand. And that is how we care for others. Today, we are facing an epidemic of burnouts in healthcare, in classrooms, and even in friendships. But what if the key to a truly humane society lies in a common skill, one that could benefit us all? Because the problem isn't that we don't care enough. It's that the way we've learned to care is breaking us. Hi, my name is Michelle, a nurse and researcher today, but once that was rather different. As a young girl, I had an amazing opportunity to move to Paris, from where I was able to build a long-lasting career as a professional model. So this beauty shot, when I was just 18 years, was the beginning of an era. And honestly, those were amazing years. I would do it all over again, without a doubt, as it shaped my life in many ways. Photo shoots, commercials, magazine covers, runways, even some TV and film, traveling the world. Until that unguarded moment. I fell from a 3-meter-high scaffolding and I was hospitalized for 2 years. 2 years. Several weeks in coma, months in the ICU, countless brain surgeries, and for most of that time, I could not walk, I could not speak, and thus I was dependent on help, well, just about everything. The warm and humane care of Wim, the head nurse, and his team are the reason I stand here before you today. Hello, Wim. Excellent posing skills, wouldn't you say? Yes, I recovered completely. Desperate to not be seen as the victim, I rushed back to working in the spotlight, pretending nothing had changed. But of course, the world around me, and especially me, Michelle, everything had changed profoundly. And it was thanks to the many conversations I had with Wim that I decided to start this new adventure, as I aspired to be the same warm nurse, just like Wim and his team had been to me. But what I discovered was shocking. The warm and humane care that saved my life, it seemed painfully rare, almost nowhere to be found. And now in this transition from model, traveling the world, to patient, being independent on others, to becoming this ambitious nurse on this warm mission with a zest for science, this gave me a unique perspective on how we care for others, on how we can build a truly humane society. I needed to understand what it was that made me heal. What was Wim's secret? So it was back in 2022 that I spent a full year on my first big research. I called it a plea for warm nursing care. And to be awarded by my professors with a great distinction, I knew I was onto something that mattered. Now, although my story today comes from my heart as a nurse, my message goes far beyond healthcare, because at some point we all become the caregiver. And fortunately, we don't need a tragedy to become one. We don't all fall from a 3-meter-high scaffolding, have our skulls drilled open to relieve the pressure. Yes, it worked, but I would not recommend it. Often becoming the caregiver happens in the small moments. When a child wakes up sick, a friend is crushed after a breakup, our loved ones fight cancer, when our parents or grandparents begin to forget. So the question isn't if we'll care for someone someday, it's how. Today I will present 3 common ways of caring. Often we care from empathy, some from compassion, and others from detachment. I will highlight what doesn't work and where I see the solution to build a truly humane society benefiting both the care recipient and the caregiver. You, me, every nurse, every teacher, parent, or caregiver out there. So we can all master the art of caring without breaking. Let me begin with the first 2 common ways of caring. In my search to understand what was Wim's secret, I had an aha moment. Because the problem wasn't that we didn't care enough. It's that the way we've learned to care is breaking us. And so I have a confession to make. I do not believe in empathy. Whoops. Minor heart attack. Don't worry, I get regular reanimation trainings. Is everyone okay? But yes, thank you. Yes, you've heard me well. I'm a nurse, and I actually doubt the power of empathy. Now, I have to thank the researcher Paul Bloom and his book Against Empathy, who made me understand that this first way of caring could actually be dangerous. And yes, I know it's a trend, as if it's a superpower. But I've noticed as a nurse that often many of us use the words empathy and compassion interchangeably. And although these ways of caring, they are related, they are not the same. Empathy means to care with someone. I mirror or experience the suffering of others. Whereas compassion means to care for someone. I recognize the suffering in the other with a sincere desire to help, but without suffering myself. And now, yes, you may say, subtle difference, potato, potato. But imagine, someone is drowning in the river. Empathy would be to jump into those raging waters, blind for danger. Your suffering becomes my suffering. Whereas compassion is to throw the life buoy while standing strong on solid ground, pulling them to safety. Let me emphasize how deeply different these 2 ways of caring really are. Because in my research, I had discovered that empathy is linked to the higher numbers of depression, anxiety, and the overall rising numbers of burnout. If you decide to jump into those raging waters, you can drown too. Here's the good news. Compassion actually rewires our brains to become more resilient. And so compassion connects us without overwhelming us. Even more so, thanks to the groundbreaking research of neuroscientist Tanya Singer, we now know that compassion protects us from burnout. What did she just say? Let's recap. So from science we know empathy is linked to the overall rising numbers of burnout, but compassion makes us more resilient to protect us from it. Wow, there you have it too. The aha moment I had during my research. Thanks to science, I learned compassion protects both the care recipient and the caregiver. Often I say, empathy drains, compassion sustains. Now, yes, we all struggle with caring for others without losing ourselves. And so as a nurse, I started noticing some people ignored the raging river waters. They stood away, dry and untouched. I call this third way to care from detachment. And these detached, they are emotionally numbed out. In our high-stress society, we have learned to detach just to function. Yes, for a while it works, but over time it becomes a habit of the heart. We build an emotional armor blocking both pain and connection. And don't we all see and feel this dehumanization in our society as a whole? But no, I am also not always the perfect nurse. Some days we can barely keep our own mess together, let alone carry the burdens of others. Because we have learned to care from empathy and we refuse to drain in the suffering of others, somehow we have bypassed compassion entirely, and now many of us are caring in a detached way. Let's bring an example, something daily life we can all relate to. And for a moment here, we are all working in retail. And an angry customer is yelling at us. Furious. Classic, right? Now, from empathy, you mirror the anger and you take the emotions personally. You might get defensive and snap back. Great. Now you're both drowning in the river. From compassion, you understand the anger is not about you. And instead of being overwhelmed with emotions, you stand strong on solid ground and try to find a solution anyhow. Thanks to throwing that life buoy, you're both left feeling resilient. Now, from detachment, you go into shutdown, thanks to your armor blocking both pain and connection. And you might say, oh, sorry, that's not my department. I shall transfer you to customer service. Voila, another problem solved, because honestly, we've stopped caring as a whole. Be aware that detachment, it might feel safe, but actually, it drains us too. Just like empathy drains, compassion sustains. And so, to come closer to my ending, I have a gift for you. Some numbers, because don't we all love rock-solid data backed by science? And in my research in 2022, I had already discovered that absenteeism or sick leave was a staggering 36% higher in healthcare compared to other sectors. Crazy, right? And that was back then, and absenteeism just tells one side of the story. Recent numbers in burnout show us a completely different side of the puzzle. Depending on the study methodology or the region, numbers in Europe are showing a whopping 40 to 60% of nurses are reporting burnout, feeling completely drained. 40 to 60%. And all I'm trying to say with these numbers is that our very caregivers, they are breaking. So yes, sometimes we stop caring simply because we no longer know how to care. That's why distinguishing empathy from compassion and understanding detachment is not the answer is so urgent. Now we know both empathy and detachment. It all drains. Compassion sustains. So I would like to leave you with this last thought, because we don't need more exhausted heroes, but we do need to care. And I would like to end with my journey began. Next time, ask yourself, am I drowning in empathy? Perhaps feeling detached? Or can I stand strong on solid ground? Because thanks to compassion, this is for me a tool. I can care every day again for every single patient. How? By throwing that life buoy, helping you swim stronger than ever before. Let me leave you with this very last thought. Choose to be someone's buoy. Thank you.